The goal of what I do and inside of helping liberate people from toxic relationship is not just to get everybody no contact. That's not the goal. The goal is to get you so clear, so certain, so confident in being able to trust yourself so you know how to trust others. At that point, when you're able to work through the obstacles in your life, you're able to step into a place of certainty, which says, hey, I can either begin the relationship or I can leave the relationship, but I know who I am. Most of you don't know even who you are, which is why you're even in a toxic relationship as well, because you let someone else start to define you, define your worth, define your value. This is what I help people do. This is why I help women actually get back and understand who they are, move into a place where they are confident, secure, and have this certainty moving forward. The hard part with a changing narcissist is you never know what you're going to get. You never know if he's actually changing. You never know if he's pulling the wool over your eyes. You never know what's going to happen. I've had several people that have come to me before saying, my narcissist is changing. What do I do? How do I know this is actually real? One client in particular noticed he was changing. She toyed with it for a while. Do I go back? Do I stay with him? What do I actually do? And she eventually ended up moving back in with him because he'd shown and he'd professed this piece of change. And over a period of time, she realized pretty quickly that it was just a facade. It was just something to actually get back in bed with her, to actually keep her stuck in the relationship. And as a result, she stayed stuck for another year. Just a simple change over a couple of weeks, and she stayed stuck for another year. How much time are you willing to waste? How much time are you willing to gamble with, thinking maybe he's changing, maybe he's not? If you don't have boundaries, if you don't have parameters, if you don't have goals inside of this process of changing, it's going to fall apart. Let me explain what that looks like. First off, I need you to understand two concepts here. One is the piece of change versus transformation. And change is this piece of modification, behavioral modification, molding, developing, something that is shifting. Oftentimes change is temporary. It is not long lasting. And so when you're thinking maybe he's changing, understand the majority of narcissists do change. The problem is they just modify and shift and shape their behaviors to appear different to keep you stuck. So many people are like, can a narcissist change? Yes, and the majority of them do. The problem is not the change piece. You're not actually looking for change. You're looking for transformation. Now, the reason why I use transformation is because transformation is an internal rewiring of what's actually going on. Transformation is the caterpillar that turns into a butterfly. They didn't just change and become a better caterpillar, become a non-abusive caterpillar, non-manipulative caterpillar. No, it actually completely changed into transformation. Transformed into how it was to how it is now. This is the process that you need to be looking for, because if your narcissist is not transforming internally to externally, nothing's actually going to be any different. You're just going to get manipulated, abused, and stuck for a long period of time. That's it. So just know going into it, this is the piece that you have to worry about. This is the piece you have to focus on. The second piece is this idea of, is he changing for you? Narcissists will change for anyone. And if you haven't seen this already, then you might be a little naive, or you might not be actually looking at it with your eyes wide open. Because how many times has he changed for someone else in your life? He's changed for his coworkers, shows up different for them. He changed for the affair partner. He showed up different for her. He shows up different for you. He shows up different for the kids. He shows up different for his parents. He shows up different for your parents. Don't you see? He already changes a lot. He has all these different masks that he keeps putting over his face, different versions of himself that he's telling to other people so they get convinced that he's a good guy, when in reality he's just an asshole. So I want you to understand there's this piece of, wait a second, is he changing or is it transformation? And is he changing for me or someone else? Or what is actually happening? Once you understand loud and clear, if you get any wind of the fact that he's changing for you, you probably want to leave. If he's changing for you, then I would continue going towards divorce. If he's changing for you and for the kids, then I would go ahead and file. And it's done. You're like, wow, that seems harsh because he said he's changing. That's great. But no change for another person lasts. No change for another person lasts. Like, I need you to understand this. Like, the change, the transformation that happens internally has to be for him. Because what's going to happen when he bases all of his change on being with you and then he falls out of love with you again? He starts looking at pornography again. He goes and hooks up with another hooker again. Like, what's going to happen? Well, then obviously that change wasn't good enough because the change only was based on how you showed up, how he felt. And as a result, he runs his life based on how he feels, what he wants, and then the moment, as soon as that happens, boop, nope, back to reality. This is the rubber band effect that you hear even Dr. Ramani talk about, where narcissists will get stretched and pulled so far, and then all of a sudden, snap, and it pops right back. Simply because he was changing for another person. He was modifying for another person. He was like, I can do this, I can do this, I can look better, I can talk better, I can lie less, I can look at women less, I can not do all these things. And he's like, oh, but she disrespected me. Rubber band snaps back. Change for another person will never last. Never last. Never work. Because it's this white knuckling approach trying to actually fix things. But in reality, nothing's going to get fixed in this way. There has to be transformation. It has to happen from the inside out. So, thing is, how do you know that this is actually happening, right? Because your narcissist has been saying, well, I'm changing. Okay, so one, is he changing for you? And two, is it transformation? There's a difference. So make sure you understand this. Not that you're talking to him and asking him, are you changing or is this transformation? Like stop. Okay, get real, and we need to focus on you and how you actually identify this. Okay, this is where we start bringing in boundaries and goals. We're going to intertwine them. We're going to talk about them all at the same time. One, understand that boundaries are for you, not for him. Boundaries are not limits and laws and regulations placed upon him. They're boundaries that say, hey, you are only willing to accept X amount of shit before you actually are out. Okay, that's the extreme sense, but that's pretty much the only place you have to go when you're dealing with a narcissist, because it's not like he's responded to any of your other consequences at this point. So there's this piece of understanding, hey, a boundary is saying this is the level of what I'm willing to experience. Not, hey, this is the level that you're allowed to go to. No, this is the level that I am willing myself to experience. After that, I'm not willing to experience this anymore. Do you see the difference? We have to be able to get boundaries in the right perspective. If we don't, then you're just putting laws and regulations and rules on another person, and that's the outward conformity of change, which will give you nothing. But you become a taskmaster and you become a parent to the narcissist, and as a result, you never have a relationship, you never have connection, you never have commitment, you never have true intimacy. Because you're just modifying him from the outside. It's not going to work. Long term, never works. Instead, we're talking about these boundaries being for you, and we're talking about these goals being for you and for him. Now, when we talk about the goals, we're talking about how you're growing, how you're developing. Whole nother thing. Watch the video from yesterday about focusing on you. But then we're talking about this piece of goals then of how is he actually growing, changing, developing, transforming, how he's showing up on a day-to-day basis. Let me give you an example. Let's say, for instance, you've been talking to him for the longest period of time and saying, I really need you to go to therapy. Okay, one, you're trying to press an outward change. You can bring it up, but if you keep pestering about it, if you keep pushing it on him, it doesn't matter because it's not him wanting to do it. It's not him coming to terms with it. It's not him seeing that he needs it. It's just him trying to appease you, to keep you, control you, and confuse you. So inside of this, you have to understand you're going to be stuck for a long period of time trying to manipulate and control him to get the desired result. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for transformation, which means boundaries and goals. The boundaries are for you and the goals are for you and for him. So the goal of saying, hey, if you want us to work out, like something needs to change, I think you should look into therapy. And then you set in your mind a goal of, okay, he has to get into therapy within a month, within 2 months. Because if he actually wants this relationship, and I've stated this, and this is what it's going to cost, and this is what it needs to happen for me to stay in this relationship, and he chooses not to do it, he doesn't care. Like, well, maybe he just forgets. Maybe he just doesn't understand. No, he doesn't care. Because people make time for the things they care about. People make priority for the things that they care about. People do things for the things and the people that they care about. So let's stop giving all this grace when someone actually isn't just showing up, isn't actually doing the work required. So when you think your narcissist is changing, you need to set boundaries for yourself and you need to set up goals. I typically say you need to come up with 6 goals/boundaries. So 1 could be get into therapy. 2 could be in therapy for a minimum of 6 months. And then this can go on and on. Those are just 2 examples. Now, inside of this, you might only communicate 1 out of those 2. Get into therapy. That's it. You're not going to bug. You're not going to pester. You're going to say it maybe once, maybe a couple times, and that's it. Then he gets into therapy and he drops out within 2 months. Well, right then and there, not meeting the second requirement of needing to be there a minimum of 6 months. The thing is, you didn't tell him 6 months. Why? Because if you told him 6 months, he'd go 6 months, do the 7th month, find a reason to quit, and then be back with you. No change, no difference, just modifying his behavior to keep you a little bit longer. Do you see how this can get really manipulative? If you declare and you state exactly everything that you want, a lot of times he will give you everything that you want, get to the other side, and take away everything that you thought you had. Manipulate, control you. So inside of this, I need you to understand you have to set up boundaries and goals. Let's say you come up with 6. 6 boundaries and goals that are quantifiable, that are time sensitive, that are measurable. Stop making these goals of like, well, we'll just love each other better. No, you need measurable, tangible outcomes. Because if you don't have this, you're going to live in the land of emotion, and he's going to manipulate that every single time. And he already has. So stop living there and start understanding we have to bring in logic here and say these have to be quantifiable, time sensitive, goals that can be actually metric tracked. That way you know, is he actually changing, growing, developing? Are you getting less arguments this month than you did last month? This week were there less blowups than last week? Literally, you're going to have to track some of these things. It sounds ridiculous, but yeah, you're dealing with a ridiculous situation. You're dealing with a narcissist. So as a result, you have to get really granular to actually see, am I seeing growth? Then you have to evaluate. You have to see, is this actually changing, developing into the relationship that I want or not? Now, when you come up with the 6 boundary/goals, I need you to understand you're going to communicate a maximum of 3. Typically, I say only 2. 2 to 3, you're going to communicate to him. The other 3 to 4, you're never going to communicate. They're going to go to your grave. But you need to have a time limit on all 6 so that you give the first 2 and you see if he does them. If he does them and he doesn't continue progressing through his growth and development, hitting a lot of the other goals, you're like, well, but he doesn't know about them. Exactly, that's the point, because you want to know that he actually wants it for him, not for you. If you give a narcissist a checklist, he'll check it all off and he'll go back to using and abusing you just like he did before. This is why you have 6. This is why you communicate 2, max of 3. You keep the other 3 or 4 forever. But they have a time limit so that when you pass this time limit, it is your parachute. It is the backup parachute for you to pull the ripcord and say, I'm out. I'm done. Peace. We are done with this. Simply because of the fact that this isn't going to work because you're obviously not investing in yourself. You're not transforming who you are. So bye-bye, narcissist. I'm out of here. Do you get this? Boundaries and goals, they have to go together when you're in this quandary of, am I dealing with a narcissist that's changing? How do I know? The goal of what I do and inside of helping liberate people from toxic relationships is not just to get everybody no contact. That's not the goal. The goal is to get you so clear, so certain, so confident in being able to trust yourself so you know how to trust others. At that point, when you're able to work through the obstacles in your life, you're able to step into a place of certainty, which says, hey, I can either begin the relationship or I can leave the relationship, but I know who I am. Most of you don't know even who you are, which is why you're even in the toxic relationship as well, because you let someone else start to define you, define your worth, define your value. This is what I help people do. This is why I help women actually get back and understand who they are, move into a place where they are confident, secure, and have this certainty moving forward. And if I can help you with that, go to rawmotivationscoaching.com today just to see some other examples, testimonials of people that have been freed, and how to continue moving forward for you.